You are currently running on empty because you have been worshiping an illusion. You have bought into the modern lie that your life was designed to be comfortable. You believe that every closed door is an attack from the enemy. You view every season of isolation as a sign of divine abandonment. But you have severely misunderstood the true nature of the wilderness. Your current exhaustion is not proof that you are failing. It is the unmistakable evidence that you are being systematically broken down for a higher purpose. The Creator is not invested in your immediate convenience. He is entirely committed to the architecture of your eternal character. The relentless anxiety you feel late at night is a direct result of your stubborn self-reliance. You are fighting to preserve a version of yourself that was never meant to survive this transition. You keep asking for an exit strategy while the divine hand is trying to build an internal fortress. Stop treating your emotional burnout as an unexplainable tragedy. It is a strategic intervention designed to strip away your superficial dependencies. Your primary mistake is expecting a fallen world to offer you a permanent sanctuary. Happiness is a fleeting byproduct of current circumstances, but holiness is an unshakable identity. You have been praying for an easy path because you are terrified of the weight required to grow. But the weight is exactly what creates the spiritual muscle you desperately need. The pressure will not stop until you abandon your demand for comfort. Welcome to the painful beginning of your sovereign realignment. Your soul is currently enduring a form of spiritual hypertrophy. When you enter a physical gym, you do not expect the weights to feel light. You understand that muscle fibers must be micro-torn before they can expand. Yet, when the weight of life presses down on your chest, you immediately cry out for rescue. You mistake the tension of growth for the trauma of punishment. God is treating your faith like a primary muscle group that must be systematically overloaded. He is far less interested in your temporary convenience than he is in your eternal capacity. The modern world has conditioned you to crave instant gratification and effortless peace. You want the crown of maturity without the bruising weight of the crucible. But true spiritual authority is never given away as a free commodity. It is forged in the silent endurance of pressures you did not ask to carry. You cannot expect to possess the resilience of an ancient prophet while living with the fragile mindset of a spiritual infant. True happiness is not a shallow emotional high that disappears at the first sign of trouble. Real happiness is the structural byproduct of deep and uncompromising holiness. The holiness being demanded of you right now requires the complete execution of your ego. It requires you to stand perfectly still when every natural instinct tells you to run or defend yourself. Look closely at the model of Christ, and you will see a masterclass in heavy resistance. He did not walk through this earth draped in a blanket of superficial comfort. He was a man acquainted with deep grief, heavy isolation, and systematic betrayal. Yet his character remained flawless because his internal fortress was anchored in the Father. The fruit of the Spirit is not a list of passive, gentle traits for the weak-minded. Love, patience, and self-control are highly aggressive spiritual weapons. They require an immense amount of internal muscle to deploy when the world is throwing fire at your face. You are being forced to lift heavier burdens right now because your current strength is insufficient for where you are going. The problems multiplying around your life are not chaotic accidents born out of cosmic randomness. They are precisely calibrated resistance mechanisms designed to break your reliance on human validation. Every difficult conversation, every financial tight spot, and every silent night is a heavy repetition. You are building the capacity to hold immense spiritual weight without buckling at the knees. Stop begging the Creator to lighten the load when He is trying to make you stronger. If He removes the resistance too early, your character will remain permanently soft. He loves you too much to leave you as a defenseless child in a brutal war zone. The pressure you are experiencing is the highest compliment the heavens can pay to your potential. It means you have been selected for a severe upgrade in your spiritual authority. Do not faint under the weight of this current set of trials. Breathe through the exhaustion and recognize that your endurance is actively stretching. The tearing you feel inside is not the sound of your destruction. It is the necessary expansion of a vessel being prepared to carry a heavy weight of glory. Consider the psychological terror of receiving a divine command that violates your current understanding of reality. Imagine standing in a dry, barren wasteland and being told to build a massive ship for an impending global flood. This was the exact reality of Noah when he was hit with the ultimate test of human reason. Up until this precise moment in human history, the sky had never dropped a single drop of rain. The earth was watered by a gentle mist that rose from the ground every evening. Noah was being commanded to prepare for a catastrophic event that had zero historical precedent. He was handed a blueprint for an impossible task that made absolutely no sense to his logical mind. This is the agonizing what test that every true believer must eventually face on their journey. It is that paralyzing moment when God places a massive dream or a heavy mandate upon your shoulders. You look at your bank account, your current skill level, and your limited resources, and you panic. Your mind immediately starts screaming that you have completely misheard the voice of the Creator. You assume that a real divine instruction would naturally come with immediate clarity, comfort, and ease. But the what test is deliberately designed to completely bypass your fragile human intellect. It forces you to step into a terrifying dimension of faith where logic becomes entirely useless. Noah had to endure decades of public mockery and intense isolation while building that massive wooden ark. Every single swing of his hammer was a loud declaration of war against the mocking spirits of his age. He did not have a weather forecast or a physical sign to validate his grueling daily labor. He only had a single, unshakable word spoken into his spirit by the living God. True faith is defined as facing an unknown future without needing to know what happens next. You are currently trapped in deep anxiety because you are demanding to see the final chapter before you move. You want a guarantee of success, a detailed roadmap, and a safety net before you take the first step. But God will never give you a clear map when He is trying to teach you how to follow His voice. He will hand you a strange hammer and tell you to start building in the middle of your dry desert. The impossible task before you is not a trap designed to mock your obvious human limitations. It is a highly strategic setup to display the absolute sovereignty of God through your fragile life. Stop telling the Almighty that you are entirely unqualified for the heavy vision He gave you. He already knows that your flesh is completely incapable of pulling off this miracle on its own. The blueprint was never intended to fit into the small box of your current reality or understanding. It was designed to break your reliance on human wisdom and force you to lean on supernatural power. When you finally stop asking, "What am I doing?" you will begin to see the divine architecture take shape. You must learn to trust the terrifying weight of the assignment even when the skies remain completely clear. The rain will eventually come to validate every painful boundary you have set in this season. Until then, you must keep swinging the hammer of obedience in total silence and absolute focus. Your sanity depends on your willingness to look completely foolish to a world that cannot see the storm. Step onto the construction site of your destiny and abandon your constant need for intellectual safety. The ark you are building right now is the only thing that will sustain you in the coming shift. The shifting of your spiritual climate is a silent and deliberate act of divine disruption. You are currently disoriented because the atmospheric pressure around your life has completely changed. The old methods of survival that worked in your previous season are no longer producing results. You are trying to breathe the air of a valley while being forcefully pulled up a rugged mountain. This sudden drop in comfort is not an indicator that you have stepped outside of divine alignment. It is the structural necessity of a soul that is being prepared to survive deeper waters. Before the ancient floodwaters broke loose, the entire physical environment of the earth had to be rewritten. The protective canopy of mist that had sustained humanity for generations was completely dissolved. A new and terrifying reality was introduced to force a stubborn race out of its perpetual stagnation. God will intentionally alter the spiritual climate around you to make your old dependencies completely toxic. He will cause the ground beneath your feet to feel dry and completely unresponsive to your labor. He will allow the voices that once validated and comforted you to go completely silent. This systematic isolation is designed to alter your internal chemistry and force spiritual maturity. You cannot carry a heavy weight of glory while remaining dependent on the shallow praise of men. You are being forced to adapt to a higher altitude where only the voice of the Creator can sustain you. Stop crying out for the return of your old, familiar seasons of effortless comfort. Those seasons were designed to nurture you as an infant, not to sustain you as a warrior. The current hostility of your environment is a clear indicator that you have outgrown your past. You are being conditioned to walk through thick darkness without losing your absolute internal stability. When the climate changes, your prayer life must shift from desperate begging to sovereign authority. You must learn to anchor your mind in the unchanging nature of the living Word. The atmospheric pressure you feel right now is compressing your character into diamonds. It is stripping away the superficial layers of pride and deep-seated emotional vanity. Do not panic when the air feels thin and the path ahead looks entirely uninviting. The Creator is expanding your lung capacity so you can breathe in the middle of the storm. You are being decoupled from the shifting tides of this chaotic world system. Your validation no longer comes from the visible success of your immediate circumstances. It is hidden deeply within the secret place of the Most High God. Stand completely firm in the shifting winds and let the old version of you blow away. You are being reconstructed from the inside out to match the gravity of your true calling. The second severe trial of your character is the sudden disruption of your geographic and professional stability. This is the agonizing where test, and it is designed to completely dismantle your illusion of control. Consider the psychological weight carried by the patriarch Abraham when he received his cosmic marching orders. He was 75 years old, deeply comfortable, and highly established in the prosperous city of Ur. At an age when most men are looking for absolute predictability, God demanded a total uprooting. He was told to pack up his entire existence and journey toward a land he had never seen. The most terrifying aspect of the divine command was the absolute lack of a specific destination. He was forced to move his family, his servants, and his livestock without knowing where he would end up. This is the exact spatial insecurity you are experiencing in your career, your relationships, or your living situation. You are being forced out of a familiar environment because you have outgrown the grace assigned to that territory. Your current anxiety stems from your desperate demand for a clear, verified coordinates before you take action. You want a guaranteed contract, a flawless 5-year plan, and absolute visual confirmation before you move. But true faith is defined as following the precise leading of the Creator without knowing the final destination. When you demand an explanation before you offer your obedience, you are trying to operate as your own God. God will intentionally call you into transition periods where the next step is completely shrouded in thick fog. He does this to force you into a state of total, moment-by-moment dependence on His immediate whisper. If you knew the exact layout of the destination, you would rely on your map instead of your guide. Your current state of displacement is not a cosmic punishment or a sign of divine confusion. It is a highly calibrated test of your willingness to exist in the uncomfortable space of social insecurity. Abraham had to abandon the physical security of his fortress city to become a wanderer in the desert. He had to learn to sleep peacefully in temporary tents while holding on to a permanent, invisible promise. You are being asked to quit relying on the structure of your current title, your bank account, or your comfort zone. The voice of God is calling you to walk away from the places where you have become spiritually stagnant. Stop looking back at the comfort of your personal and complaining about the dust of the transition trail. The transition is the exact place where your carnal self-reliance is being methodically starved to death. You cannot possess the vast inheritance of the future while clinging to the dead structures of your past. Every mile you walk in absolute uncertainty is stretching your internal capacity to handle true spiritual wealth. The Creator is not lost, and He has not miscalculated the trajectory of your fragile life. He is leading you down a winding path to ensure that your ego cannot take credit for the ultimate breakthrough. Your sanity will return the moment you stop asking, "Where am I going?" and start asking, "Who am I following?" Pack up your bags, quiet your racing mind, and step boldly into the sacred territory of the unknown. You are currently trapped in a painful paradox that is draining your psychological stamina. You have obeyed the divine promptings and stepped out of your old comfort zones. You have left behind the safety of your personal and walked into the unknown. Yet, instead of immediate victory, you find yourself living in a temporary tent. You are surrounded by the very territory you were promised, but you do not own a single acre of it. This is the exhausting reality of the nomad's paradox that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had to endure. For 3 entire generations, these chosen patriarchs lived as wandering foreigners in their own land. They were forced to constantly move their camps, pitch temporary shelters, and endure the elements. They had the ultimate divine title deed to the country, but their daily reality was absolute instability. This is exactly why your soul is experiencing such intense, chronic weariness right now. You feel like you are perpetually stuck in a transition phase that will never end. You look at others who are easily settling down, building empires, and finding permanent security. Meanwhile, you are forced to live from hand to mouth, season to season, and contract to contract. You are constantly asking when you will finally be allowed to build a permanent structure. But this prolonged state of homelessness is a highly sophisticated tool of divine detachment. God is intentionally keeping you in a tent to prevent you from marrying your environment. If you settle down too early in a temporary territory, you will mistake a resting place for your ultimate destiny. Your current isolation and displacement are forcing you to decouple your identity from geography. You are being trained to find your absolute security in the voice of the guide rather than the safety of the camp. When you live in a tent, you are forced to keep your eyes on the horizon. You become intensely aware that this present world is not your final sanctuary. The psychological toll of this season is designed to burn away your deep-seated need for earthly validation. You are being forced to outgrow the fragile dependency on physical walls and stable bank accounts. Abraham endured this agonizing nomadic lifestyle because his eyes were fixed on an entirely different architecture. He was not looking for a human city built with brick, mortar, and fragile political alliances. He was looking forward to a city with eternal foundations, designed and masterfully built by God. Your current frustration is a clear sign that your internal vision is being severely upgraded. The Creator is making you deeply uncomfortable with temporary success because He has a permanent inheritance waiting for you. Stop complaining about the dust on your shoes and the lack of a permanent roof over your head. The tent you are living in right now is a mobile school of supernatural resilience. It is teaching you how to pack light, move quickly, and remain completely unshaken by external chaos. You are building the internal muscle required to govern a territory without being possessed by it. Do not let the long waiting period convince you that the promise has been canceled or forgotten. The delay is not a sign of divine denial. It is the necessary timeline for your character development. You must become perfectly comfortable with being a stranger in a world that is rapidly passing away. Your true citizenship is anchored in an unshakable kingdom that cannot be touched by economic ruin. Quiet your restless heart, driving your tent pegs deeper into the word of promise, and prepare to move again when the cloud shifts. You are currently suffering from the crushing weight of a silent timeline. This is the agonizing when test, and it is designed to completely break your fragile sense of urgency. You have been handed a profound promise, yet your daily reality looks like a stagnant wasteland. Your mind has turned into a chaotic battlefield of endless, exhausting overthinking. You keep checking the clock of your life, watching your years slip away in total obscurity. You are crying out in the middle of the night, demanding to know the exact date of your breakthrough. But you have severely misunderstood the fundamental nature of divine timing. God is not a celestial vending machine waiting to immediately satisfy your emotional demands. He is not a captive genie bound to your desperate, panic-driven schedules. He does not operate under the frantic limitations of human time or cultural expectations. He has all of eternity to masterfully fulfill every single word He has spoken over your life. Your primary mistake is assuming that a delay in delivery is a sign of divine denial. You believe that because nothing is moving on the surface, nothing is happening in the spirit. But the delay is the exact mechanism being used to extract your toxic sense of entitlement. If every single prayer was instantly answered, your faith would remain permanently shallow. You would learn to worship the gift while completely ignoring and forgetting the giver. God wants you to build your entire existence on His promises, not His immediate explanations. He does not owe your intellect a single line of clarification for why this is taking so long. Look closely at the multi-generational journey of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They spent their entire lives living under the heavy tension of an unfulfilled geographic inheritance. They did not spend their days demanding a detailed, step-by-step cosmic schedule from the heavens. They anchored their sanity in the absolute immutability of the Creator's character. Your current season of waiting is not a meaningless waste of your valuable time. It is the critical training ground where your carnal impatience is being systematically starved to death. You are being forced to outgrow the childish need for constant, immediate, visual validation. When you finally stop asking, "When will it happen?" you will find a profound, supernatural rest. You will realize that the delay is actually protecting you from a blessing you cannot yet manage. If the door opens before your character is fully formed, the weight of the breakthrough will crush you. The Almighty is slowing things down to ensure that your internal foundation can support your external elevation. He is teaching you how to worship Him in the middle of a prolonged, unyielding silence. Your strength is being renewed right now, far away from the applause and validation of men. Stop trying to force open doors that the hand of sovereignty has intentionally locked for your protection. Rest your racing heart, quiet your anxious mind, and let the timeline belong completely to God. Your breakthrough will arrive at the exact microsecond your character matches the gravity of your calling. Until that moment, stand firm in the stillness and let patience finish its deep, structural work inside your soul. You are currently staring at a wall that your intellect cannot climb. This is the paralyzing how test, and it arrives when your human logic runs completely out of options. You are facing a dead-end situation that defies every law of probability and common sense. Your finances are completely broken, your body is exhausted, or your family dynamic is deeply fractured. You have spent weeks desperately calculating every possible outcome in your hyperactive mind. You have stayed awake until dawn trying to engineer a breakthrough out of thin air. But the math of your life simply does not add up anymore. This is the exact psychological paralysis that gripped Abraham and Sarah in their old age. God had explicitly promised them a son to birth a mighty global nation. Yet decades rolled by in total biological silence until Abraham reached 99 years of age. From a medical and logical standpoint, their situation was completely and utterly dead. When the divine voice reminded them of the promise, they both burst into laughter. It was not the laughter of joy, but the bitter reflex of a shattered expectation. They looked at their decaying physical reality and saw an entirely unsolvable problem. You are doing the exact same thing right now with your current crisis. You are looking at the natural evidence and concluding that a miracle is mathematically impossible. But you have forgotten that God routinely uses absolute dead ends as his primary canvas. The how test is designed to intentionally execute your reliance on human strategy. If the solution could be engineered by your talent or your intellect, it would not require faith. You would walk away from the victory bragging about your own strategic brilliance. The Creator will purposely let a situation get completely out of human control before he moves. He waits until your options are completely dead so that only his hand can receive the glory. Faith is defined as confidently expecting a massive miracle without needing to understand the mechanism. You do not need to figure out the logistics of how your breakthrough will manifest. Your only assignment is to anchor your mind in the absolute integrity of the promiser. Abraham eventually stopped looking at his own dead body and looked entirely at God's track record. He calculated that the same power that spoke the universe into existence could easily speak life into a barren womb. When the child was finally born, they named him Isaac, which literally means laughter. God took their bitter, cynical doubt and transformed it into a masterpiece of supernatural joy. He wants to do the exact same thing with the dead end you are facing today. Stop trying to play the role of the architect, the strategist, and the savior of your own life. Your fragile human intellect was never designed to carry the heavy weight of cosmic logistics. The unsolvable problem in front of you is a direct setup for a profound display of sovereignty. Let go of your desperate need to understand the mechanism of your rescue. Step back from the chalkboard of your endless calculations and let the master mathematician work. The solution is already fully engineered in the hidden spaces of the spiritual realm. It will manifest at the exact moment you completely resign from trying to force it yourself. Quiet your racing thoughts, close your eyes, and rest in the absolute certainty of his power. You are currently walking through a graveyard of unexplained pain. This is the ultimate, gut-wrenching why test, and it is designed to completely shatter your hidden idols. It arrives when you suffer a loss that is completely irrational, brutal, and entirely senseless to your mind. A sudden tragedy, a betrayal that blindsided you, or a dream that died right before your eyes. You are weeping over the wreckage, desperately begging the heavens for a single line of explanation. You believe that if you just understood the reason behind the trauma, your soul could finally heal. But explanations are a cheap counterfeit for true comfort, and they will never heal your broken heart. If the Creator handed you a detailed intellectual blueprint of your pain tonight, it would change nothing. Knowing the medical or mathematical reason for a tragedy does not make the void feel any lighter. You do not need a logical explanation from God. You desperately need the immediate presence of God. Look at the terrifying, breathless ascent of Abraham up the steep slopes of Mount Moriah. His miracle son, Isaac, the literal embodiment of every divine promise, was now a young man. Suddenly, out of the silent night, God commanded Abraham to offer this precious boy as a bloody sacrifice. It was a command that completely contradicted everything Abraham knew about the loving nature of the Creator. It felt unfair, cruel, and completely insane to any natural human intellect. But it was the absolute ultimate test of a father's soul. God was looking directly into the deepest chambers of Abraham's heart to answer one definitive question. Do you love the gift more than you love the giver? Have you quietly turned the miracle I handed you into an idol that replaces my authority? If you love the dream more than the dream giver, that dream will eventually become your psychological prison. Abraham did not argue, scream at the sky, or demand a lengthy theological defense from the Almighty. He gathered the wood, climbed the rugged mountain, and bound his only son to the stone altar. He calculated that the sovereignty of God was infinitely greater than the permanence of physical death. He trusted the unchanging goodness of the Creator's character, even when the immediate command felt completely dark. This is the severe maturity that is being forcefully extracted from your soul in this painful season. You must learn to worship the Lord on the mountain of your deepest, most senseless losses. Stop using your pain as an excuse to retreat into bitter cynicism and spiritual rebellion. Life on this fallen earth is filled with chaotic injustice, broken people, and sudden, agonizing endings. But God does not cause the tragedy. He uses the trauma to realign your eternal perspective. He is tearing away your superficial attachments to ensure that He is your absolute, unshakable foundation. You will never survive the heavy weight of your future destiny if your joy can be stolen by a single earthly loss. Bring your shattered expectations, your broken dreams, and your heavy questions to the altar tonight. Stop looking for a human explanation in a world that cannot even understand its own shadow. Lay down your desperate demand to know why this happened and simply rest in the presence of the King. He is holding your tears in the palms of His hands, and He has not abandoned your story. The knife of sacrifice is not the final chapter of your life. Your willingness to surrender everything is creating a profound space for a supernatural resurrection. Quiet your weeping mind, steady your shaking hands, and let the sovereign Lord be enough for you. The steep, silent peak of Mount Moriah was draped in an oppressive, heavy stillness. The raw wind howled across the stone altar like a low, grieving choir. Abraham stood completely frozen in time, his hand trembling under the weight of the cold blade. Beneath him lay his miracle child, bound by thick cords to the rough wood. The boy's eyes were wide with a quiet, terrifying compliance that pierced the father's soul. Every natural human instinct within Abraham was screaming for him to drop the weapon and run. His logical mind was drowning in a violent sea of unanswered, tormenting questions. The heavy air was thick with the suffocating scent of an impending, impossible tragedy. Just as the blade caught the cold mountain light, a thunderous voice shattered the atmospheric pressure. The angel of the sovereign Lord cried out from the celestial heavens with absolute, unyielding authority. Do not lay a single finger on the boy or harm his precious life. For now the courts of heaven know with absolute certainty that you truly revere the Creator. You have not withheld your only miracle child from the sovereign hand of the King. Abraham staggered backward into the dust, his chest heaving as the suffocating weight was lifted. His vision was blurred by a sudden, overwhelming torrent of hot, grateful tears. As he wiped his eyes, a strange rustling sound echoed from the dark brush behind the stone altar. He turned his head slowly, his heart hammering against his ribs in absolute wonder. There, caught securely by its horns in a thick patch of thorns, was a massive ram. It was not a chaotic accident or a random animal that had lost its way up the mountain. That ram had been methodically guided up the opposite side of the mountain by an invisible hand. While Abraham was climbing the front of the peak in tears, his provision was climbing the back. The sovereign Lord had fully engineered the rescue long before the crisis even began. The animal was placed there to serve as a profound, eternal metaphor for your current trauma. God did not require the literal blood of the child. He required the complete execution of the father's ego. He needed to see if Abraham would worship the promise more than the sovereign promiser. The moment the internal idol was completely smashed on the altar, the celestial provision was manifested. You are currently weeping over your own mountain of sacrifice, terrified of what you might lose. You believe that the Creator is demanding your destruction because you cannot see the solution. But the ram is already fully caught in the thicket of your tomorrow. The sovereign King is already standing in the future you are so desperately overthinking tonight. He has already calculated the exact microsecond of your supernatural exit strategy. Your only assignment on this rugged mountain is to maintain your absolute structural obedience. Stop staring at the sharpness of the blade and look around for the hidden ram. The provision is always fully tied to the place of your absolute, unyielding surrender. You will never see the celestial substitute if you refuse to bind your ego to the altar. Lift your weary head from the dust of this grueling, heartbreaking season. The shadow of death is instantly breaking, and the roar of divine provision is filling the valley. The Lord Jehovah Jireh has already seen your pain, and He has already provided the lamb. You are currently locked inside a room with an enemy that has no expiration date. This is the exhausting "how long" test, and it is designed to completely dismantle your stamina. It arrives when your sudden crisis mutates into a permanent, chronic state of daily suffering. It is the unyielding physical pain that wakes you up at 3 in the morning. It is the toxic relationship dynamic that drains your emotional capacity year after year. It is the financial ceiling that refuses to lift despite your constant, grueling labor. You have spent months screaming into the silent heavens, begging for a definite end date. You are watching your youth fade away while you wait for a shift that never manifests. This is the precise psychological torture that Moses had to endure in the back of the desert. His life was broken into 3 agonizing acts of 40 years each. He spent 40 years living as a spoiled prince in the luxurious courts of Egypt. He then spent 40 years wandering as an absolute nobody in the silent wilderness of Midian. Finally, he spent 40 years leading 1,000,000 complaining infants across a blazing wasteland. He had to face the daily murmurings of a stiff-necked people who constantly wanted to retreat. He had to wake up every single morning to the exact same dry sand and the exact same complaints. He had every logical right to look up at the sky and scream, "How long, Lord?" But Moses possessed an incredible, supernatural persistence that outlasted the crucible of his environment. He did not base his daily obedience on his highly volatile emotional states or passing moods. Our modern culture commands you to base every major decision on your immediate feelings. It tells you that if a situation makes you feel uncomfortable or tired, you must immediately abandon it. But your feelings are a highly dangerous, manipulative liar designed to keep you permanently fragile. They will tell you that you are completely defeated when you are on the very edge of your victory. They will tempt you to compromise your boundaries just to escape the pressure of the waiting room. Faith is the aggressive refusal to give up when your soul is completely running on empty. It is the quiet, daily decision to keep showing up and doing the right thing when no one is watching. You are being forced to continue to persist without ever knowing how long this season will last. The Almighty is intentionally extending the timeline to kill your dependency on quick fixes and easy paths. He is forging an internal fortress that can survive a lifetime of heavy warfare. Stop looking for a secret exit door and accept the structural work of the fire. Your endurance is being stretched into an unbreakable spiritual weapon that will govern nations. The chronic pain you are carrying today is expanding your capacity to hold the glory of tomorrow. Do not faint under the weight of this prolonged set of heavy repetitions. Tie your mind to the unyielding nature of the Word and take another step forward in the dark. You will only outlast this grueling wilderness when you change the exact object of your focus. Your mind is currently drowning in a sea of toxic overthinking because you are entirely fixated on your scars. You are magnifying the size of your financial giant and measuring the depth of your valley. You are letting the physical evidence of your pain dictate the boundary of your spiritual identity. But Moses survived the terrifying rage of Egypt by unlocking a profound psychological secret. The scripture declares that he locked his gaze onto the face of him who is completely invisible. He did not focus on the massive army behind him or the raging sea in front of his face. He anchored his perspective beyond the fragile horizons of this visible, decaying reality. You are running on empty because you are trying to survive on what your physical eyes can see. You want the bank statement to look good before you find your internal peace. You want the relationship to heal before you decide to express your joy. But if you live by your physical sight, you will remain a helpless slave to your current environment. Your environment will manipulate your moods, crush your hope, and dictate your daily energy. You must look directly through the thick darkness and lock your eyes onto the sovereign King. The visible problems surrounding your life are entirely temporary and rapidly passing away. But the invisible promises of the living Word are structurally permanent and totally unshakable. Stop looking for a visible sign in the chaotic skies to validate your path. Stop begging the world for an emotional rescue when the Creator has already secured your destiny. Open your spiritual eyes and look at the celestial armies surrounding your valley tonight. The mountain you are climbing is not an unexplainable tragedy designed to break your spirit. It is a profound vantage point intended to elevate your vision above the noise of the earth. When your internal gaze is firmly anchored in the heavens, your external anxiety instantly dissolves. You realize that the fire you are walking through is completely subject to the voice of the Master. The pain cannot consume you because you are fully hidden in the shadow of the Almighty. Shift your focus away from the complexity of your problem and look at the magnitude of your God. He is standing inside your silent room right now, holding the blueprints of your absolute victory. You do not need to see the physical path ahead when you are walking with the Creator of the light. Steady your racing heart, clear the fog from your mind, and fix your eyes on the invisible King. Bow your weary head right now and let the heavy weight of your anxiety completely drop. Close your physical eyes and step into the silent sanctuary of the living Word. Let us pray this deep prayer of absolute surrender, together in the quiet space of your soul. Dear Sovereign Lord, I confess that I am completely running on empty from my own self-reliance. I have spent months desperately trying to engineer my own rescue and force open locked doors. I have wept in the middle of the night, demanding immediate explanations for my heavy losses. But tonight, I resign from trying to play the role of the master strategist of my life. I lay my broken dreams, my chronic pain, and my unyielding questions on your holy altar. I choose to trust your unshakable promises instead of demanding your immediate logical explanations. If you call me to build an ark in a dry desert, I will swing the hammer in total silence. If you pull me out of my comfort zone, I will follow your voice without needing a map. If you make me live in a temporary tent, I will drive my pegs deep into your word. I calculate that your power is infinitely greater than the dead ends of my current reality. I fix my spiritual gaze entirely on the beautiful majesty of your invisible kingdom. Fill this quiet room with your immediate, comforting presence and heal my exhausted mind. I anchor my soul in your unyielding sovereignty, and I declare that you are completely enough for me. In the holy and authoritative name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen. If this prophetic message has realigned your spirit tonight, do not stay silent. Seal this internal decision by typing the words, "I trust the process," in the comments below. Let our community stand with you in faith as you step into your ultimate breakthrough.